1. My wife and I decided to take a kidless vacation to the West Coast to visit the Rockies and do some hiking. Neither one of us are very active, but she really wanted to do this, so I agreed. We flew out on Friday and decided to do the hike on Saturday because it had rained on Thursday. Saturday morning, we had a big breakfast, went to the store to pick up a few drinks and light snacks, and we were on our way. Neither of us had been here before, so we were relying on an app that gave us a red line of the suggested route. Things started out great. We were walking and talking, having a great time. We got to a fork in the road where the app said to the left was a paved, easy trail, and to the right was a dirt intermediate trail. I suggested we take the paved trail, but the wife said, "When are we gonna ever be out here again?" and said she wanted to take the dirt trail. I gave in, and we went her way. Luckily, we weren't complete idiots. We were wearing hiking shoes and had brought hiking poles with us too. I clicked the trail on the app, and the red line changed to direct us to the top peak and back down again. You enter from the south side of the mountain, and it kind of zigzagged its way up to the northeast. Then you come back down the west side in a more direct route, with only a couple of zigzags till you get to a road on the southwest side. The app said it should take about 4 hours. At about 10 a.m. we started our trek. The path was dirt, but covered in stones. After about 10 minutes we reached our first turn. The stone path continued straight, but we were supposed to basically make a U-turn and head up a dirt, leaf-covered trail. This continued for a few hours. Dirt paths climbing higher and higher up the mountain. We ran into a few people along the way, but it wasn't too busy this day. We were having a great time. At about 1 p.m., we made it to the peak. A little behind the time the app said we would, but nothing too crazy. It was beautiful. You could see the other mountains in the distance. Some had snow on them. I would post pictures, but they wouldn't do the view justice. We ate a quick snack for lunch and started heading back down. We had been following the red line to a T up to this point, but then we ran into an issue. The red line wanted us to go right, almost a straight vertical, and this path was super muddy still from the rain a few days ago. Expert hikers would have trouble with this, let alone novices like us. I pulled out the app, and it said if we make a left it'll loop down around and catch up to the red line after a few minutes. Wife agreed that she was already too tired to climb up, so we headed down. We shortly found out why this wasn't the suggested route on the app, as this path got very steep very quickly. Luckily, we had our poles and the trees were there to catch us when we slipped, and we eventually made it back to the red path. We laughed and agreed to not leave the red path again. The red path was taking us southwest, which was the direction we wanted to go, until we reached the last zigzag. The red path wanted us to head back northeast uphill, then loop back down till we headed southwest again. The path we were currently on continued downhill and headed southwest. When I told my wife where the path wanted us to go, she said, "No, I'm tired of going uphill. I want to keep going this direction and downhill." I reminded her about what happened when we went off the red path last time, but she didn't care. This path looked better, and she wanted to go that way. I quickly checked the app, and the trail she wanted to go did run parallel to the red path, and after a little bit, there were paths that connected between the two. So we made our fatal error, and went off the red path a second time. We walked along this path, which honestly was nicer than most of the other paths we had walked on before, until we reached the first connecting path. When we got there, there was a big barbed wire fence and a sign saying, "Private property, no trespassing." Well, that sucks. So we continued walking till the next connecting path. Again, barbed wire and a sign. Uh-oh. Onto the third path. Same thing. All the paths that connected us back to the red path were blocked. I quickly checked the app, and it said the path we were currently on eventually made it back to the same road we wanted to go to, just further north than we had intended. Not ideal, but at least it was somewhere where we knew we were going. When we get to the end of the path, and first we have to hike through a bike track with jumps and wobbles and tons of stuff, probably not intended for people to walk through, but we make it through, and there it is, the road. We can see it. Unfortunately, though, we also see more barbed wire fences. I checked the gate to see if there was a handle or something we can open from our side, and I see it is chained shut with a padlock on it. I checked the app, and this is the only other path to this road. I should mention that it is about 4 p.m. now, and it gets dark here between 5 to 6 p.m. We knew we couldn't backtrack because we've gone about 2 hours up the wrong path. Other than our cell phones, we didn't have any other sources of light. We were both getting tired. We didn't have any more food, and most of our water was gone. We knew we wouldn't be able to spend the night out there, and would probably have to call for a rescue soon. That's when we heard the water. Not rain, but running water. I remembered that this mountain had a popular waterfall on its north side. I checked the app, and there is a path that runs off the bike track around the falls and out to a street. Not the one we want, but it's still a street, not here. I ask the wife if she thinks she'd be okay to hike it, and we decide to go. The trail is definitely more advanced than any of the other trails we had done so far. Some parts felt more like rock climbing than hiking. But eventually we made it. We got to the street. We both sat down on a stone at the end of the path to take a quick breath. And as if some sort of cruel irony, the streetlights turned on right at that moment. It was about 5:30, so we had just made it out before dark. Only problem is we are on the north side of the mountain, completely on the opposite side where we wanted to be. We decided to call a cab to one of the houses on the street. When we got back to the hotel, we hobbled our way back to our room and collapsed onto the bed. We decided to order room service and stay in, as our legs were no longer working at the moment. And as a double cruelty, my insole shifted, giving me a nasty blister. Moral of the story is, stick to the red path, kids. 2. I work in a print shop. 2 employees. That makes some money on the front end with basic walk-in customers for simple copies, prints, faxing, shipping, etc. In a town of 10,000, 30,000 in the county, and we have a large prison, so our typical bunch for such things are printing legal documents, faxing insurance and disability claims, housing applications, or just part of our older community because people seem to like to retire here. It's not surprising when we have someone that doesn't know how to email a PNG and can afford a flash drive to bring in to print, so you get creative on how to extract stuff off a device. I'm a sucker for kind old customers and like to make things that should be typically out of my reach for what I do because they're so appreciative. It feels like my fault because I know people are really a bit slow, and I've seen sensitive material all day, and being on a computer every day for years should teach me about stranger danger and basic device usage and safety. I should also assert myself and insist that they help themselves and come back with the materials in ready-to-print format, so I don't need to spend an hour in an understaffed Kinko's clone and backing up the line. He brought his entire computer from home. He unplugged the power and the monitor, and brought the micro PC with the power cord and the mouse still plugged in, and asked me if he could get his files printed. If I could just plug a USB in and take them off or plug his computer into mine. I was almost angry at the logic, but he asked so nicely. So I found a spare socket after crawling on the floor, unplugged my dual monitor and plugged it in, and held onto the PC at first. The second it was on, the user was a lowercase PC, like he typed it himself, and when I clicked sign in, it was like seeing the devil. He was Taiwanese and banging. There were so many tabs. Thai whores in costume, women in costumes, dark-skinned babes. Watch this explicit, yet explicit. I instinctively clicked out of as much as I could because it felt like I was the one who got caught. And this was the monitor that was facing towards the front of the store, and I think some people saw it, but I was too embarrassed to look and kept clicking while the dude was over my shoulder saying, "Oh, you can just close out of all that," with the same tone as if he was talking about cooking a recipe. I thought he was going to ask me to minimize it for later, but I never gave him the chance to speak. Once I finally got down to the desktop, it was like 6 chapters of a book he's writing using some free writing program. They were open the whole time under this, so I imagine he just got horny while writing, and his post-nut clarity made him remember to run errands today. So I just export everything to PDF, extract it on a flash drive — I should clean that now — and turn the thing off and give it back as quickly as I could. I had to replug it in once because apparently I missed something. I disinfected the desk twice and was using sanitizer before I touched anything else, given that I had to keep using his mouse. Funnily enough, he was writing about the Separated Life Survival Guide, about his perspective on how to exist in a separated marriage. Every time he referred to his wife, he'd say how she was taken away from him, and I'm not sure I know what that means. It was like $24 for the 2 copies. Said he'll be back again as he finishes the book. 3. This burger chain at my uni was selling what they claimed to be the world's spiciest burger. As someone who loves spicy foods and can handle them better than any white man should, I decided on doing this challenge after I finished the exam period. So the day comes. I finished my last exam and I head straight over to the burger joint. There's a couple other people there also doing the challenge, along with a few who had completed it. They warned me of the ring of fire you get when it comes out the other end. Cool. We'll see how I handle that when it comes to it. A little thing to note here is that this burger is so spicy that they have you sign a legal waiver first, saying you won't sue them should you be hospitalized from it. They also give you a pair of goggles and gloves so you can't get it into your eyes. I had a friend who worked there who claimed the burger was 20 million Scoville. I doubt that's true, but it did have Carolina Reapers, ghost peppers, and others in it. So I start eating, and it really isn't that bad. As long as I get it down as quick as I can, it can't do that much damage, right? And it seemed I was correct. I got through the whole thing without my mouth burning too much worse than if I'd eaten several chilies. I refused milk, and stayed there for a while to watch the others who were attempting it, and who were clearly in incredible pain. One who had already done it once, but hadn't been given the special keychain to prove it. I still didn't know why he attempted it again. He didn't get through it this time. After the pain was gone, I left to stay at my girlfriend's for the night. When I got there, she wasn't initially home, so I just went to her room and waited. This was when my stomach started to feel unwell, a slight cramping that gradually increased. By the time she arrived, I was pacing around the house and focusing on my breathing to get through the pain. It continued to build. I would double over in pain, and she and her roommates would just laugh at me for the idiot I was. It got bad enough that they started to claim that I looked like I was going through labor. I believed them. After a bit, my girlfriend took off to the chemist to get me some liquid Gaviscon to help with the stomach pain, while I retired to her room again to await the labor pains. After what felt like hours, she got back with the Gaviscon, and I downed several doses of it and chugged over a liter of milk. By this point, I was in a world entirely of my own pain, groaning about the pain and cursing at myself. I'd like to note here that what I thought were groans under my breath turns out to have been yelling, and is apparently the only time I've genuinely scared my girlfriend, something I'm incredibly sorry to have put her through. But like the chap she is, he continued to get me to down milk and water with the intention of having me eventually throw it all up. Soon enough, I was frantically running to the toilet, trying not to projectile vomit in the hallway. Too late. I brought my hand to my face and projectile vomited through my fingers all over the hall, as I made the last few steps to collapse in front of the toilet. It didn't stop there, though. As my guts blasted themselves empty into the toilet, spicy toilet vomit water splashed back up into my eye. Now effectively, with Carolina Reaper in my eye, I had to alternate vomiting, chugging milk, and dabbing my eye with a milk-soaked piece of toilet paper. This went on for a good few minutes, until I was a hollow wreck, sitting on the bathroom floor, with a burning eye, and my stomach finally starting to settle. After getting cleaned up, I spent the rest of the night huddled on my girlfriend's bed, stomach slowly getting better. To this day, I don't understand how the others kept it down long enough to warn me of a ring of fire. 4. A few years back, I, 20-year-old female, was working at a brewery, bar, and restaurant in a relatively upscale area as a bartender and server. I just started about 2 weeks prior and was still getting to know my coworkers. At this point, I knew that one of the bussers, nicknamed Polar Bear, was never not high off his ass. As for me, I was never too much into weed, as I found it only made me sleepy and needed something that kept me attentive. Despite this, when Polar Bear offered me a wheat brownie he'd made, I accepted. I was almost done with my shift and was planning on going to a yard house that night on a casual date. I figured I'd try the edible to keep me cool and relaxed during. Note, this was my first time trying any kind of edible, and I'm a huge fan of regular brownies. I took a bite, and to be honest, it tasted almost exactly like any other brownie I'd had. So naturally, I ate the entire thing without thinking twice. No one had commented on the fact that I ate it all, and that was that. I hop in my car, and about 10 minutes in, I'm starting to feel a little different. Maybe a bit more smiley, more into the music playing. I'm glad that I'm a few minutes away from the apartment, but don't feel anything too out of the ordinary. The girl I'm going on a date with, Dee, is ready to go about 20 minutes after I arrive, and I feel pretty much the same the whole ride to the restaurant. She's used to smoking, so I let her know that I'd consumed an edible before we ordered drinks. And she asks if she could have a bite. I'm sorry, I ate it all. You what? Please tell me you didn't really. Yeah, I did. Was I not supposed to? I can't believe you ate an entire wheat brownie. Buckle in, because it's going to be a long night. At this point, I for some reason decided to order a cider, as I felt it probably wouldn't make too much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. We ordered some kind of vegan mac and cheese, if I remember correctly, along with some vegan boneless wings and a bunch of other delicious shit. Somewhere between getting my cider and the first appetizer, I became abruptly aware of a sudden shift in reality. It's like everything had a vignette around it. Is this what tunnel vision is like? The waiter was super nice, chill. However, I started getting paranoid at his presence, especially when I had to speak to him. When the mac and cheese arrived, I was not okay. We start eating. Is this the best food I've ever tasted? Damn well could be. Give Yard House their Michelin star, damn it. Dee had said something that made me laugh, and I literally couldn't stop laughing. I'm sure it wasn't even that funny, but for a split second I genuinely considered the possibility of me never being able to stop laughing. For a brief moment, I was seeing myself in third person, and realized I was not 100% okay. I don't remember much of what happened after this, until we were about to leave. We pay the check, and we are ready to leave. Dee gets up, and I attempt to do the same, but my legs are having none of that. I tell her that I can't get up from the booth, and she sits back down. It's okay. I'll help you. Trust me. When you're standing, you'll know what to do. She pulls me by the arms, and I'm like some little kid, and I'm standing. However, cannot balance nor take any steps. It It was crazy. I put my arm around her, and she practically carries me out like I was just injured in a sports match. Thankfully, the vehicle was parked close to the restaurant, and we are on our way back to safety. Once we get on the 5, it feels like we're going 200 miles per hour. I'm watching the billboards as we go by, and they look like they're being smeared in slow motion. It was then when I freak the fuck out and have a full-blown panic attack. I lunge my knees up to my chin and feet on the seat, grabbing the center console with one hand and the safety bar with the other. I'm scared. I don't feel good. Looking back, I totally reverted to a childlike state. I was mentally 4 years old again, being forced to go on Mr. Toad's wild ride. Dee somehow manages to talk me through it, and we get back to her place. I'm feeling a bit nauseous and ask her if the effects will be wearing off soon. She says it'll probably be a few more hours and try to eat something else. She had a lot of food, but I decided to eat all her bananas. No chance I'm in any way deficient in potassium, nor THC. I thankfully pass out shortly after. The next day, I still don't feel completely sober. In fact, I feel almost hungover. I head into work, where I see Polar Bear.
How was your night?
I punch him in the arm. You could have fucking told me to not eat the entire thing. I make a mental note to never accept food from him again. A week later, we have a girls' night for work and go to the same yard house. Who's our server? The same guy as the other night. As I order in front of the group of around 30 women, he cuts me off.
Hey, I remember you from the other night,
he says to me while smirking. God knows what he even remembers, because I sure don't. Moral of this story: eat your edibles one bite at a time until you know your tolerance. 5. Prehistory. It matters. I am a New Mexico transplant expatriate. I grew up in a famous chili state, loved my state's version of Mexican food, and then moved to New Mexico, where I grew to love New Mexican food considerably more. So much more so, in fact, that I learned to cook several New Mexican chili dishes, which I make frequently enough, even though I have long since moved away from New Mexico. Here's the part that matters. When I first moved to New Mexico, I was very skeptical of the local foods. But sometimes one has no choice but to partake. I first worked at the airport at the time. There were no good choices for food. Every real meal was roughly the expense of 2 minimum wage hours of work, except one diner's local favorite of smothered fries. You can't smell smothered without mothered. Basically, it's a big to-go box of French fries smothered in cheddar cheese and chili. Those of you who are New Mexican fluent will know there will be a red or green question, and my response when I first ordered was red, because red looks like what I think chili should look like. But it was not the meaty chili to which I was accustomed. I ate it, but at the time, thought red chili was bland. It's one of my favorite foods now. So the next time I ordered the dish, I chose green. And for the second partaking of smothered fries, I was still in the process of moving when I wasn't working, so I had not had a meal. The green chili smothered fries were sweeter and seemingly milder. Being so hungry, and only on a 15-minute break, I devoured my fries and went back to my station. A short amount of time later, my digestive system phoned in a bomb threat to my brain, and my brain knew it wasn't a hoax. I worked my station by myself and would call into dispatch for break relief when necessary. But there wasn't going to be time for that, according to my internal bomb squad. Despite dispatch's plea to wait for someone, I told them I was locking my station and would be back shortly, and also that I was very sorry. I then made it to the closest bathroom and explosively produced what literally looked like my previous smothered fries meal, albeit somewhat chewed by my teeth. I've never seen anything like that before or since. I didn't even know it was possible to go through the digestive system so quickly. But my lesson was learned. Hot green chili isn't to be trifled with. Know what you're doing. Fast forward to many years later, to last night, or this morning. My local store, not in New Mexico, roasts hot green chilies every year, and every year I buy a bushel, then peel and freeze them. And when it's fall, I make green chili stew. Everyone loves it. Which kind of makes me mad, because I also love it and everyone else eats what could have been my leftovers. For the latest edition, I decided to give it extra pep, and puree an extra cup of roasted green chilies in the stew broth. I had a test cup the day before my fam gets together, and proclaim it might be the best batch I've ever made. We gathered last night and everyone agreed it was so good. In fact, I had 2 bowls, my brother had 3. And then this morning happened. I'm busy checking some spreadsheet formulas, drinking my coffee, which always gets my system going, and have to, inflate my Bloon Fiesta pantaloons. I fire the gas burners a goodly amount. Nothing unusual in that. No alarm bells elsewhere. I raise the elevation another 1,000 feet a few minutes later. It's a little hot, but still no alarm bells, no bad smells. In my estimation, I'm just equalizing internal pressure per usual. A third request for firing up my pantaloons comes in, and I allow it, because it's a pretty standard request. There are no alarm bells whatsoever. But when it comes out, it feels a little hotter, and the hotness is not going away. Uh-oh. I scurry to the bathroom, hoping I have a funny short story, but no, friends, that wouldn't be a fuck-up. A fuck-up would be what happened. All of last night's meal had come out in my boxer briefs. Luckily, my briefs were tight, and none came out in transit. But that's an inconsequential victory compared to the horrifyingly disgusting mess I found myself in as I debriefed myself in the tub. One long, mortifying long shower later, here I am writing this story. I'm pretty sure I'm not trusting a fart again. My God, there were no warnings. How could there be no warnings? P.S. My brother, also a New Mexico expatriate, had no problems. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and and thank you very much for listening to Embarrassing Stories, episode 87. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video and would like more, then please click subscribe. And possibly like. And if you're that kind of person, go on, leave a comment. You know you want to. No one's watching. Go on, leave a comment. Anyway, what day is it today? It is Saturday. Saturday, the day of Sat, the day on which we sit. I'm sure that's what it means. Right, now, there should be some sort of stream today. Likely a Phasmo stream. There is an update coming out, but that's not out till the 25th. I'm hoping they'll release it early, like they did the last one, but I don't think they will. I mean, it would be nice if it was on the weekend, but that's mostly just for my own convenience. Looking good. I think there might be a campground in it. There might be a first outsidey map, and there's some new fun stuff that looks to be added. Also, No Man's Sky's got an update out. I don't really fancy that one, but I'll possibly check it out when I get time. Alrighty, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.